The ranges of investment, they start from as low as 100,000 euros. They can go up to 150. In Caribbean, they range between 200,000 euros and approximately 350, 400, depending on the country and the option. And there are, of course, other jurisdictions such as Turkey, where the investment threshold is 400k, or El Salvador, which is a very crypto-oriented CBI program, and then the threshold is 1 million. But if you consider the small amount of, let's say, 2 to 300,000 euros, not for a decent passport for you and the whole family and all your dependents, that will basically change your life, give you mobility, provide better future for your kids, let you open bank accounts, companies, move around and be safer in general, then this is definitely very affordable.
Welcome to Investing Insights, where we chat with experts to uncover investing and life lessons that empower everyday people. Today, we're looking at the world through a borderless lens with Cezary Zieniuk. Cezary is a visionary in the world of international tax and global mobility. He's the founder of Cityverse, a premium citizenship by investment firm, and IBCCS, an international advisory firm specializing in tax planning and corporate structuring. Whether you're looking for a Plan B passport or trying to navigate the complex web of cross-border taxation, Cezary is the architect who helps you build that bridge. This podcast episode is for financial education purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Always consult a qualified professional for personalized guidance. Cezary, thank you for joining us at Investing Insights.
Thank you, Georg. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, today I want to talk with you about diversifying my portfolio, but not buying more stocks. It's actually about diversifying citizenship because it's possible to buy passports around the world. And I would like to ask you, as an expert, first of all, why do people do that? What are the reasons for it?
Well, first of all, the main reason that we get at Cityverse and where our partners also do is mobility. Nowadays, we have clients from many non-European countries such as China or many African countries that, strictly speaking, want to freely travel to UK, to EU, and to other developed countries. They want to send their kids to school in England. They want to send their kids to school in Netherlands, etc. Some CBI programs, like in Caribbean, for example, they give access to Schengen and the European Union. So once you acquire a citizenship, for example, from Grenada or Dominica, you are a citizen of this country and you can freely move through the Schengen, which means suddenly your world is open in terms of possibilities for traveling, sending your kids to school, buying properties abroad, etc. So I would say mobility is currently the most common reason for obtaining the second citizenship. However, you have seen what is happening in the world recently. If you ask me, it's a big circus. There are plenty of conflicts, wars, and let's call it diplomatically difficult political situations in different countries around the globe. So many people are acquiring citizenship via investment route in order to have plan B, in order to be safe, in order to protect their family, because once you obtain the citizenship for yourself, you can also do it through the whole family, and it's very flexible in terms of dependence. So you can get the passport for your kids, for the wife or husband, for the parents, etc. So plan B is definitely a very hot topic at the moment. Some people acquire citizenship just to show off and to collect a couple of passports because they can afford so. Some people think they are doing it for tax purposes, although this is a very common misconception that we can elaborate on. Some people do it basically to protect the legacy of their families and basically to prepare a future generation for better life. Because if you are born in, let's say, in one of the African countries where basically citizenship doesn't allow much of flexibility in terms of traveling, etc., then your kids automatically inherit the same passport. But once your kids are already dual citizens, let's say of a country in Africa and of one more country in EU or a country in Caribbean, that allows you to travel and to do many other things, then you automatically provide better future for the kids and for any other family members. There are many reasons for that, but I would say the mobility plan B in terms of having the safety to overcome any potential political issues um, are the main aspects to consider.
Great. Yeah. I mean, mobility, our world gets getting more globally interconnected and people want to
Yeah.
participate in that. They also maybe want to open a company in another country. As you mentioned, travel, not feeling restricted, and that's important. So, I mean, there might be a misconception thinking like, oh, this is like a luxury item. I need to be a millionaire
Hmm.
to afford that. I mean, I've studied this myself. I've read the book
Sure.
Nomad Capitalist about this guy who wrote about how to
Yeah.
diversify with like 15 different passports. What are accessible programs out there? I mean, I know a few, for example, in Nauru, I think you have to
Hmm.
invest just for environmental protection, but then there's many countries in the Caribbean.
Hmm.
Maybe tell us what are like the minimum amount I should
Sure.
count with, and what's an average range to get a new passport?
Well, it's a great question, and it's a great actually misconception of people have that this product, if we can call it a product, is only for high net worth individuals, for people who have a lot of money. It's not affordable, etc. Considering the affordability factor of the CBI programs is definitely a program for everyone. The ranges of investment, they start from as low as 100,000 euros. They can go up to 150. In Caribbean, they range between 200,000 euros and approximately 350, 400, depending on the country and the option.
Mhm.
And there are, of course, other jurisdictions such as Turkey, where the investment threshold is 400K, or El Salvador, which is a very crypto-oriented CBI program. And then the threshold is 1 million. But if you consider the small amount of, let's say, two to 300,000 euros dollars for a decent passport for you and the whole family and all your dependents, that will basically change your life, give you mobility, provide better future for your kids, let you open bank accounts, companies, move around, and be safer in general, then this is definitely very affordable. And I believe the reason why everyone thought or thinks still in some cases that this is a luxury product is because in the past there has not been a lot of information. These programs has not been promoted.
Mhm.
And some of these programs have been heavily used by ex-politicians, etc. So there was this misinformation that this is only for a specific group of people. Maybe it looks dodgy, maybe it's illegal, etc. This is totally not true. All of these programs that are offered by the relevant governments are legal. You obtain the passport via investment, not via bribe or something else. And yeah, that's it. It's very simple. So it's definitely not a luxury product. And I believe even if you are from not developed country and even if you have I don't know 500,000 on your account and you want to improve your future, this is a great investment because it's a one-off thing and then it opens the world of different possibilities. So definitely it's not a luxury product. We have, let's call it, average businessmen, totally not the people who most of the audience is thinking about, not ultra high net worth individuals, not billionaires. We have millionaires, we have people who have couple of hundred of thousands of dollars on the account, and they are proceeding with the CBI programs.
And as the word says, CBI means citizenship by investment.
Yes.
It's not just I give money to this country to get a passport. Usually it goes hand in hand with
Mhm.
real estate investment, right?
Correct.
You've mentioned something interesting about especially the Caribbean islands. Can you give some example of like how this can be beneficial on top of the passport by thinking about owning a real estate in such countries?
Sure. So it's a great point that you mentioned. There are a couple of options in terms of how you can acquire the citizenship by investment. First option, as you might be aware, is a donation. So you just donate the relevant sum of money to the government, and the government grants you citizenship. There are some jurisdictions where you can go through a route of purchasing government bonds or making other investments that will be partially redeemable in the future after a relevant amount of time. But in my opinion, the real estate is the best route of investment and to acquire the citizenship because it gives you a tangible asset. You own a piece of real estate in the chosen country, for example, in Antigua or in Dominica or in Grenada, and it's not a money given to the government. I don't know if you have been to the Caribbean, but it's not a bad place to visit. So owning a villa or a share or a hotel room in a nice place on the beach with amazing infrastructure and people and scenery and everything is not so bad to have. So if I can elaborate in terms of real estate, there are usually two routes of the real estate investment. The first route is the shared ownership of a government approved real estate asset, for example, a hotel. And usually these are branded hotels such as Intercontinental. So first of all, you're buying a share in a hotel which is well known, it's going to be built or it's already built. It has great infrastructure, it has great reputation, great service, etc. So you're not buying toilet in the forest or a hole in the jungle. You're buying a proper unit in the hotel. And in most of the options, you can actually utilize or use the visits during the year. This is the first option. So you buy the share in the hotel, let's say. In some cases, you're allowed to stay there for 14 days, 30 days, depends on the country. And usually in this case, the thresholds are minimum. They range with different amounts depending on the countries. For example, in Grenada, it's $270,000. In Antigua, it's 300K. In Dominica, it's 200 plus, etc. So it depends on the country, but this is the most commonly used option for people who want to own something, want to use a nice luxury holidays free of charge, and people who cannot afford, let's say, or do not want to buy a standalone property. Yeah, so this is
And actually, this hotel room then or property, this makes money for me, right? Because it will be rented out when I'm not there.
look, this is a very tricky question.
Hmm.
In theory, it does make money, but these programs are not really created for purpose of receiving good ROIs and investment. It's
Mhm.
more for holding the relevant amount of assets. And of course, if depending on the deal, you do indeed receive quite good ROI, and there are different options in terms of payouts of this EMI. I don't want to elaborate on this because I can't. I have NDAs signed with the governments or developers,
Mhm.
but there are investment options that can give you some good returns. Let me put it like this. But you should not expect, getting, I don't know, 10, 20% ROIs
Yeah.
on
Okay.
this option, on the shared ownership option.
So now it's getting difficult because you've mentioned Caribbean is very beautiful. So how do I choose between Grenada, Saint Lucia, Dominica, Antigua?
Mhm.
It all sounds wonderful. How do you guide clients to find the right option that works for them?
Yeah, that's a very nice question. Look, I have been there a couple of times. I've been to each place and I did it throughout the last, I don't know, 10 years or so. So we can advise the clients properly because even though real estate purchase or investment or traveling is always a personal and emotional choice. Basically, if you travel somewhere you like it, you enjoy being there, you will recommend it. However, I took a very different approach, more cold approach in the beginning, and I do love spending time of Caribbean islands. They're all beautiful and great, but they are actually very different, both in terms of infrastructure, real estate possibilities, investments, etc. Without offending any other Caribbean jurisdictions, in my opinion, best for affordable investments and in terms of real estate. are definitely Antigua, Grenada, could be St. Kitts, and could be Dominica. But in my personal opinion, and again, this is guided by my personal feelings and personal likings.
Mhm.
If I was investing in a standalone real estate, I would buy either in Antigua or Grenada because they're nice, luxury, and very affordable. And for very high-end real estate, I could probably go to St. Kitts. And here, if you don't mind, I can elaborate a bit on the standalone purchase in
Of
terms of
course.
real estate.
Please go ahead. We have time to
Yeah.
discuss this in detail. That's the idea.
Great, thank you. So it's worth to mention that not all the jurisdictions have an option of purchasing standalone properties. In some jurisdictions, there are only government approved properties that are, for example, hotels that share units. Because in order to purchase a standalone real estate for this purpose, the project has to be government approved. You cannot just buy a random house that you like,
Mm.
which makes the choice very limited in some cases, and which makes some jurisdictions not to be very suitable for this. However, in theory, in most of the jurisdictions, if you find the project that matches the government criteria, you could apply for the approval for the government to treat this as CBA approved. But it's not very easy, and the government is picky, and I wouldn't recommend that unless there is a specific purpose. But coming back to the point, I would definitely advise to buy real estate, standalone real estate in Antigua, because in my personal opinion, it has the biggest real estate potential. There are many government approved developments in nice places such as Jolly Harbor next to the marina, or within the marina next to the beach, or within the walking distance to the infrastructure. Um, there are many nice projects, and there are projects for different kind of people. There are villas for 1-2 meals for group of family that maybe wants to stay there, maybe wants to rent them out. There are apartments budgeting around 700-800K in different locations next to the sea, next to the forest, etc. So there is a lot of choice here. Because I mentioned in the shared ownership option, it's not really an investment high ROI generating asset. In this case, since you own the real estate, you have full flexibility to manage, rent it out, maybe
Mm.
sell it in the future, and you are not forced to work with a hotel brand that will charge you high management fees. Here,
Mhm.
you can achieve very good ROIs. I can give you an example in Antigua. If you buy, first of all, Caribbean jurisdictions, if you want to stay there as a tourist, are very expensive if you want to stay in good conditions. I'm personally a little bit spoiled. I like staying in five-star hotels, etc. So for a person like me, if I travel to Caribbean, I need to spend seven to $900 per night,
Mm.
which is a lot if you compare to Europe, to Arab Emirates, etc. And this is not for renting a villa. This is usually for renting a nice hotel room on the beach or close to the beach. So if you have a villa, usually the villas are rented for more than 1K a day, $1,000 a day. If you make good marketing and you decorate it nicely, you can rent it even for $2,000 a day. And if you make your calculations very quickly, if you spend, let's say, $1.5 million for villa, including all the furniture and stuff, and then you're able to rent it for $2,000 a day, it can bring very decent ROI.
Mm.
Of course, it depends on many factors. You need to have management, you have to have somebody on the spot, depends how you market it, depends how you decorate it, etc. But with standalone options, you can definitely make good money. Good, maybe better than in US or statistic ROI on the rentals in Europe.
Very interesting. And of course, if you really do that type of investment, it's good to visit the country first, get really, assessment support by Cityverse, for example, or any other company that
Definitely.
offers that service to really take the right investment. Let's look on the other side of the world, down to the southern Pacific. There are two more countries called Vanuatu and Nauru.
Correct.
How is the setup there? Does it come with real estate investment or just donation based? And
Mm.
what's your experience there as well? Do you have clients already who settled there, or not just actually it's not settled, it's yeah, who purchased the passport?
Yes, of course, we do have clients. Even last week, we have processed one. There is no real estate option in Vanuatu or Nauru. At least this is the current situation. In Vanuatu specifically, there are two options of investment. One is donation. So you invest 100, you make a donation to the government basically, and then you receive your citizenship with a very quite flexible due diligence, definitely more easy and flexible than in the Caribbean jurisdictions, and also much faster processing time. In Vanuatu, you can get the citizenship within 1 month. So
Well,
it's very fast. There are no like very complicated due diligence procedures, etc. Of course, a person applying needs to meet the relevant criteria and he should have clean criminal record. But provided that everything is fine with the documents and the profile of the person matches, then this is the probably the most efficient jurisdiction that exists.
hmm
And in addition to the donation option in Vanuatu, there is also a program called CIP, Capital Investment Immigration Plan. And this is a kind of an investment, not a donation. So you invest $165,000, and the government, through relevant counterparts, is managing slash investing this money, and then you can redeem a certain amount of these funds after 5 years. So this is also an option. To be honest, did I thought nobody will be interested in this. I just thought that most of our clients will be like, let me pay 130, 35K doesn't make a lot of difference. I don't care if I get something in the future. Let me just go through this option because it's easier, faster. But
hmm
we started getting clients that are actually using the CIP programs, and I really support this because the CIP program doesn't invest in some random stuff. They really develop the local infrastructure and invest in different sustainable investment and ventures, whether in Vanuatu or not, usually within Vanuatu, because the whole idea of these programs is to develop the countries, to develop the infrastructure, to make the islands better, etc. So because this has a very genuine purpose, there are a lot of people who are actually very happy to do that because they might like the project that the government is currently having. Of course, it doesn't mean that the donation amount, which is 130, is burnt. This money is invested in the infrastructure. So it's helping, and I see from year to year, uh, when I travel to these places, I really see big improvements. There are new marinas, new hotels, new infrastructure, better roads, so better airports. It used to be a huge problem. Now there are flights to, for example, in Caribbean, there is a very easy connection to US, to UK, to Europe in some cases. So you can see the change. It's not the money thrown in the air. The
mm
government is really making use of this money in a decent way. But to answer your question, Vanuatu and Nauru. Nauru is a fairly new program. The threshold there is only a donation option, and the threshold is, if I'm not wrong, $105,000. Nauru is definitely more undeveloped. It's a very small island with practically no infrastructure. In Vanuatu, there is much better infrastructure. There are many islands, and there is more life in general. So if somebody would like to visit Vanuatu or Nauru, I don't think they'll be happy with their visit in Nauru, if I can diplomatically say this. They will be definitely happy about visiting Vanuatu, although it's not so easy to get there. It's a beautiful island. It's one of the only places in the world where you can visit an active volcano. So it's fun, and it's of course it's beautiful, or warm temperature, nice weather, beach, palms, etc. So I would be definitely a fan of Vanuatu comparing to Nauru. Plus, Vanuatu is one of the pioneers on the market in terms of the CBI program because it exists for many years, and Nauru was literally introduced last year. So it's less stronger in terms of the visa-free countries that you can visit is less known than Vanuatu. And if you ask me, I wouldn't go for Vanuatu. I wouldn't go for Nauru passport if I had a choice of Vanuatu because, for example, all the banks in the world, they already know Vanuatu. All the institutions, financial institutions, when you travel, they hear about Vanuatu, but nobody knows Nauru, and there is not a lot of infrastructure there. And it's definitely much more difficult to, I don't know, open a bank account or deal with any immigration things comparing to other jurisdictions that offer CBI programs. So I wouldn't recommend it as a choice between Vanuatu, Nauru, and Caribbean, for example. However, if somebody has some very specific purpose of getting this specific citizenship, then of course they're welcome. And there are many collectors of different citizenship. So if somebody is a collector and they want to have one more exotic passport, of course we can assist them with that.
Yeah, and in the end, I assume Cityverse helps me with that, but I have to check as well the quality of the passport. Quality in the sense of like how much access do I get? How much travel freedom do I get? Because I will have to see, can I enter into the European Union with a Nauru passport
No,
compared to
definitely
Grenada?
not.
Okay.
Definitely not. So, to make a long story short, the passport of Nauru or Sao Tome as an alternative, or Vanuatu as much better alternative of, let's say, these three choices I mentioned, they do not grant access to EU, unfortunately. They have very limited possibility in terms of traveling and visa-free access. So it's more for people who cannot afford maybe Caribbean passport or do not care about the mobility. For example, if somebody has a European passport, then they might not need another passport that will grant them Schengen access. They
Yeah.
might be fine by having a passport of Vanuatu and have it as a plan B. We actually do have clients from EU, from your regions as well,
Mhm.
that are obtaining such passports to have plan B. And well, they don't need a Caribbean passport. They don't need a El Salvador passport. They don't need to have access to EU because they already hold one European citizenship. And yeah, you mentioned Grenada. At the moment, all Caribbean nations do offer visa-free region to EU and Schengen, provided, of course, that you are the citizen. Most of them, they offer visa-free access to UK. This is a very common question that we get from Asian clients because they love UK. They all send their kids to, Oxford, Stanford, whatever. UK is definitely a good factor in terms of considering Caribbean passport.
If you're interested to take a real estate investment abroad, obtain a second citizenship, or get more detailed information about available citizenship by investment programs, also called CBI, reach out to Cityverse, cityverse.ae. You can find the link in the show notes. And if you mention the keyword investing, Cityverse will provide you with a free 1-hour consultation on CBI programs. Okay, super interesting. So it really depends, okay, where I'm from, what's my current passport, how much money do I have, so when can I afford which program, and then of course calculating the return on invest based on everyone's preferences, if somebody wants to have real estate or not. And
Correct.
just to add my personal note on it, everybody has to check as well what's their current passport and if it even allows a dual citizenship. So just a side note, as an Austrian,
Hmm.
usually if I would say no, I would buy a second passport, I would then have to renounce my Austrian passport. Yeah, have to give it away. So I cannot choose two citizenships. It's different if somebody is born to, let's say, Austrian parents but
Hmm.
abroad. But for me, someone Austria is very strict. Except you have something like the Schwarzenegger exception when you're when you're famous, and also there's sports or athletes where we give them
Correct.
a second passport or they can keep it. So that's something very important to consider.
Correct. Although, if I can comment,
Hmm.
I don't want to elaborate on the first comment I will make. The first comment is the following. Most of these jurisdictions where you obtain second citizenship do not exchange information with your first country of citizenship. So it's not an advice for sure, but it might be possible to obtain second citizenship without renouncing the current one. Of course, if you ask me if it's proper, if it's legal, if it breaches, in your case, Austrian domestic regulations, etc., this is a different story. But technically, it might be possible. This is the first thing. Second thing, you would be surprised, but actually nowadays many people from such countries like Austria, Germany, UK, US, which are very developed countries, many of these people are actually willing to renounce their citizenship. Maybe in case of Germany, because they do not support the current political or immigration situation. In US, for example, in my opinion, no offense to Americans, but it's one of the worst passports in the whole world. And this is only because they do have citizenship-based taxation. This is the second country in the whole world that allows this. So long story short, if you are a US citizen, you will be always subject to reporting of all of your income and assets, and potentially you will be always subject to tax, whether you reside in US or not.
Mm.
People that I mean, there are some mechanisms such as double tax treaties that in some cases, because in US it doesn't always work, in some cases you can avoid double taxation. But if, for example, if you move to a country where there is no treaty or where there are tax instruments, you reside there, you want to pay taxes there, US will still ask you to pay the tax in US. So you will be double taxed for the until the rest of your life. So
Mm.
we have many, I personally know many people that either renounce when they want to renounce their US citizenship. And again, no offense, I have a lot of friends from US. I like the country. It's a great country. Probably, as Mr. Trump would say, it's the best country in the world, or the greatest country in the world. I will not comment on this. However, you get the point. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely a trap because there are many people who are moving to US with their kids, give birth there, and make the relevant infrastructure in order to get the US passport, but they do not know and they do not realize that they will be binded. I wanted to say something else. They will be binded by these regulations until the rest of their lives, and they will have to report and pay taxes on pretty much everything they do, even if they do not live in the US.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's a bummer for all the US Americans, actually. Yeah, very special setup you've mentioned. I think it's
correct.
just US and one or two countries in the world that actually do that.
It's US plus at the moment, I don't remember the country. If it's Eritrea or something, it's some small African country.
Okay.
I think it might be Eritrea.
Let's talk about
However,
obtaining a passport in Europe. I mean, there's golden visa programs in Cyprus, Malta, Portugal. Let
yeah,
us know if somebody wants to obtain a European passport. What can he or she do?
yeah. So first of all, golden visas, they do exist in many European countries, but golden visas give you permanent residency. For example, in Cyprus, we used to have a CBI program in the past. You had to invest 2.5 million and then you were granted a citizenship. In Malta, this program used to exist, I believe, until last year. Golden visas, to go back to the point, give you only permanent residency and not citizenship. Of course, if, for example, you move to Cyprus, obtain a PR as non-European individual, um, and then you get the PR for lifetime. In our case, it gives you a lot of benefits because you live here, you pay zero tax because of non-dom. You have a great infrastructure, nice weather. It's a European country. This year, it's planned for the Schengen accession. So anyone that will get a PR in Cyprus, when we get into Schengen, they will basically have a lifetime visa-free access to Schengen area.
PR is
However,
permanent residency, right?
yes, PR is permanent residency. The golden visas, I mean,
Hmm.
same thing. Golden visa is more, I would say, informal abbreviation that they use especially in Greece or in Portugal, Spain, etc. But at the current moment, and it will definitely not change in the next years, there is no route of obtaining citizenship by investment in European Union. it does not exist. I know that there are many of the influencers on Instagram promoting, invest 50K, get your passport in Romania, invest 30K and get your passport in Slovenia or in Hungary. But strictly speaking, all of this is a piece of crap. It's illegal.
Mm.
I don't want to call these people in a specific way because, in theory, in most of the countries in the world, including EU, there is a path of receiving citizenship through exception. For example, you go as citizen of Austria, but example, you go as citizen of, I don't know, Argentina, you go to Hungary, or you go to Poland, or you go to Germany. And then you invest a lot of money into the economy. You hire people, you open businesses, maybe you build schools, you make a relevant contribution to the well being of the country. In this case, by order of exception, the president of the country can grant you a citizenship. But it's not invest K and get a Slovenian passport. It's a proper, substantial structuring. You need to go there. You need to make a deal with the government. You need to build a school. You need to make a decent contribution. I mean, imagine if you go to Austria, for example, a decent contribution will not be buy a house in Vienna. They will require you to do a lot of things for a lot of money to potentially grant you citizenship.
Then we talk about millionaire setup again. So that's just
Yeah,
for the really rich
millionaires
people.
or billionaires setup. But strictly speaking, there are no investment programs in the European Union. And all these people that are saying that it's possible, they do have results because I know people who do that, but strictly speaking, they do it illegally. I will tell you how they do it. They
Okay.
basically forge the documents that somebody, the applicant, had family roots. So they find, let's say, old birth certificates where you could
Mhm.
write by pen, who was born and where, and you suddenly, you, a citizen of Russia, living in Moscow, you were born in Hungary, in Budapest. So they fake the documents in most of the cases, whether in terms of family roots or other mechanisms. However, this is fraud. Imagine even if somebody pays to some fishy agents and they receive such citizenship, because I've heard it works in a couple of countries. Then imagine you're from, I don't know, Ukraine or Russia or whatever. You obtain a Hungarian passport. You are super happy. You go for a trip to Italy. You have a car crash. You have killed somebody. It was an accident by mistake, whatever. You go to jail. They make a check of you, obviously, as a suspect. And they find out this guy was born in Moscow. His name is XYZ. But why he doesn't have a second passport where it says he was born in Budapest?
Mhm.
So he goes to prison for fraud. He says which agent convinced him to do it, and then I hope the agent goes to prison for fraud.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, that's of course a fishy
Yeah.
setup. I
I'm
mean,
sorry for the lack of my diplomacy, but I'm very angry about this kind of people
I
because
mean,
first of all, they destroy the industry, and second of all, they are criminals.
and that's why we're here to inform, right? To show what's really
Correct.
legit. And if you look at the prices, it makes sense. Like, why would you be able to buy a European passport for 20 or 30,000 when the
Yeah.
Nauru one costs 105,000? I mean, it worked out for Jeffrey Epstein. They found an Austrian passport in his documents. So even Austria has some past where maybe that was possible in getting such passports.
Yeah.
But yeah, also do what I want to mention or to ask actually, how is it? Because if I buy a passport, I don't need to move my residency there, right? I don't have to visit the country. I don't have to live there. But with a permanent
Mhm.
residency, I kind of have to stay in the country. How many days is it per year?
Well, it depends on the jurisdiction, but
Mm,
you are right. Let's clarify that having different citizenship doesn't mean you should pay taxes somewhere else or doesn't make you a tax resident of that country. So it's a very common misconception, and it's might be overused by some people in a bad way. But in general, let's make an example. If you're, I don't know, if you're Ukrainian, if you're a citizen of Ukraine and you have obtained a passport of Grenada or Antigua or Dominica, Uh, Luckily, in most of these places, you have income tax. At least on the personal level, there is no capital gains tax. So these are tax-free jurisdictions. People think, okay, I'll get a Antiguan passport, I will not pay taxes. This is not true because taxation, especially personal taxation, refers to the place of residency and not to citizenship. So a person that has Ukrainian citizenship and lives in Ukraine and suddenly moves, for example, to Austria, and in the meantime he obtained a Antiguan passport, he will have to pay taxes in Austria because he lives there and he is a tax resident there, not in Antigua.
Mm.
However, what is good is that many CBI jurisdictions, as I mentioned, they have tax-free regimes for individuals, especially in Caribbean. So if somebody likes living in Caribbean or can fulfill the requirement of being the tax resident there and let's say not being the tax resident elsewhere, then this is possible. And this is especially possible for citizens of all American continent because Caribbean is very close. So it is actually achievable. I know some people that permanently live in different Caribbean islands and they are retired, they pay zero tax, and but they legally reside there. They spend majority of time there. So definitely the goal of obtaining second citizenship for tax purposes is not realistic. Of course, it is technically possible to open a bank account, open a company with your new citizenship, with your new passport, and declare that you are living somewhere. In the eyes of the bank, you will be probably, depending on the case, different person comparing to your initial citizenship. But again, I will not call this by names. It's not proper.
Mm.
So it's called tax evasion, not tax avoidance, but tax evasion, and it's illegal, and it's very risky nowadays because we are living in the world of exchange of information. It's very easy nowadays to track where you are, what you do. We have social media, we have credit cards, we have banking infrastructure, we have logs at the airport, stamps in the passport. So it's not that easy.
Got it. So it's somebody has to really think as well, where do they want to live? Having the second passport is good to have a second option, to have an investment.
Correct.
But if somebody wants to really use it to save taxes, it needs a whole consideration of where do I
Correct.
register my residency, and especially if I also want to move my company, I have to move the company as well or open a new one in this jurisdiction.
Preferably. But yeah, you are right in general.
Yeah, and then there is I know it in Germany, we have it. I think in Austria as well. Something like an exit tax. It's when I move away from a country, I have to actually file for that. Let's say I will buy a passport from a Caribbean country or even Paraguay. I know a lot of Germans do it as well. That they move to then Paraguay, but they actually have to inform that they're moving out of the country, and then that tax can apply to
Mhm.
all of their assets or what they have. Correct?
Look, yes, correct, but with stars and with brackets, exit tax does exist in many countries in the world,
Mm.
including Germany, Austria, Poland, etc. However, first of all, it does not affect all types of assets and income. It usually affects the passive income that you had in your country, and then you're basically removing this income to another country to be taxed less or zero. So first of all, doesn't affect everyone because not everyone have relevant types of income or assets. Second of all, in most of the countries, exit tax has financial thresholds. In Europe, it's usually €1 million of whatever you're moving. So if you are having, I don't know, 500,000 worth crypto or 300K worth stocks, or some other assets that you are moving to other jurisdiction, depending where you reside, where you move it from, this might be exempt because it doesn't match the relevant threshold. And the third, most important, there are ways to avoid exit tax. I'm not going to give you a tax advice here. I don't want to discuss, any structuring, but there are very simple mechanisms involving companies or corporations or corporate structures where by moving to a low tax jurisdiction or by moving wherever, you can avoid the exit tax completely. So it is possible, and it is possible to be done legally.
And for that, you have your second company, right? IBCCS.
Correct. For that, we have IBCCS tax where you can consult us, visit us at our office, and we'll give you all the relevant solutions.
Yeah, the website looks similar. You have many countries where you support. I mean, that's a whole different episode we would cover on. It's like how to open a company in Gibraltar, in Cyprus, in Estonia, in Georgia, in the US.
Yeah, I mean, we do exist. I mean, we have more than 50 people working for us around the globe. We're not a huge company, but we do have physical office and we do have real people. So, we're not one of this one man only consultant that tries to pretend that he has a global reach and partners everywhere, where at the end he's just an intermediary.
I mean, yeah, and it's of course challenging. I can see you have to be up to date on so many regulations around the world. It's the passport, it's the taxation, it's the investment part as well.
Yeah.
Corporate tax, personal gains. So it has many facets, and every setup is individual as well. Like I talk to friends and
Hmm.
other business partners, and a lot of them, how do you do this setup? How to do that? And I always say, you have to pay someone to get the real advice if you want to
Of course.
if you really want to be sure about a solid setup, because every setup is very individual about what type of business they work in, what type of passport they have, where do they operate, what are their clients.
Definitely. Plus, relocation for tax purposes, it's not so easy. I mean, people think I will just move to Dubai or to Limassol, to Cyprus or elsewhere. And then that's it. I will start paying taxes there. It's not so easy. First of all, you have to meet the requirements of the domestic requirements of the jurisdiction that you are moving to. So let's
Mm,
take an example of you moving from Austria to Cyprus. So you need to meet the 60-day rule or 183-day rule. You need to have a center of your vital interest in Cyprus. You should also meet the requirements of not being a tax resident of your country, which is Austria. But the best thing is that the only legally binding tax legislation which dictates where you should pay tax and how and on what, etc., is a double tax treaty.
mhm,
There is obviously a treaty between Austria and Cyprus. In this example, when the international inspection starts, it's not a very common case, but wealthy people who are moving a lot of taxes from countries like Austria, Germany, Poland, etc., they might be subject to an international inspection. And then, when this happens, the conditions mentioned in double tax treaties have to be respected, not the local legislation. You totally disregard the number of days you spend in Cyprus and you more or less regards the infrastructure built. So what matters in this case is tests that are mentioned in double tax treaties. And Cyprus and Austria, they do have a treaty based on the OECD Model Tax Convention.
mhm,
And there are three, four basic tests that you should consider. First one is called permanent home. So they are checking whether you have a permanent home available to you in Cyprus or in Austria. Even if you move from Austria, you rent or buy a flat in Cyprus, you might still have a house of your parents or ex-wife or girlfriend or wife or friends that is permanently available to you. So this test is usually disregarded by tax authorities. And usually the second test after this one is called Center of Vital Interest, which is a combination of personal, social, and business infrastructure. Long story short, it basically shows where most of your personal infrastructure is and with which country you have more in common. So if you are a single guy, you're moving from Austria to Cyprus, and here you have a company, you have a business, you're employed, you go to the gym, maybe you have a girlfriend, you have a
mhm.
car, etc., 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 then you definitely have a center of vital interest in Cyprus and not in Austria because you have in brackets nothing there and you left forever. But there is also two more tests. I will briefly mention them, not to spend time on this. The third test, once the jurisdictions consider that you might be a resident of both countries because you have center of vital interest of both countries, is
Hmm.
called habitual abode. And this is the most tricky test that exists because it disregards the number of days you spent in the country. It kind of disregards your infrastructure and center of vital interest in these countries because we have assumed that you have it in both countries. So it focuses on frequency of traveling to the relevant jurisdiction, and it focus on let's say key important for your life factors why you are visiting this country. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have moved from Austria to Cyprus. You are spending 200 days per year in Cyprus, but every month on the regular basis, on specific days, you go back to Vienna to have an important meeting with your business partners, to say hello to your girlfriend, and to spend 2 days a week with your parents or 2 days a month with your parents. So
Hmm.
if we have frequency and if we have important life events for which you come back to your previous country, even though you don't spend a lot of time there, this might say you are a tax resident of that country. So it's a very tricky and interesting one. And the last test after this, if both governments would think, no, this guy is definitely living in two countries, then we have a test of citizenship.
Hmm.
And this might be important for our audience because if you have a very complex tax situation, if you are a high net worth individual living in two, three countries, you might win a tax inspection if you have a second passport.
Mm.
Of course, it's not very common to reach this level of, passing through all these tests, but technically it is possible, and I have seen some cases in the past.
Got it. Yeah, I was studying all of that setup when a few years ago, this whole digital nomad lifestyle came up, and people said like, "Yeah, you just have to deregister and
Yeah.
don't pay anywhere." And then it was like, "Yeah, but first of all, you have to be on the move all the time," which sounds amazing when you're 25 to 30, but
Hmm.
usually we all try to settle a bit more after some time. And then I realized with my setup at home, with my family there, having property, one property being in my name, that's
Yeah.
actually never going to work. And I will always come somehow back. I have property there, I pay taxes.
Hmm.
So doing that whole ID register everywhere is just possible if I really cut ties completely to the country and I don't want to go there anymore. To be really
Yeah.
sure, like I cannot be taxed here. And then I realized, okay, that's like nice for someone who really doesn't like to be in the country or be on the
Hmm.
road the whole time, but not for someone who has already something with their family in a European country.
Look, in my opinion, there is a very small percentage of people that are perpetual travelers. I know only maybe two or three, and this is always happens until some point. You might, sell everything, have no family, no relationships, no assets, no properties, whatever, and you might start, to travel the world and spend every week or month in a different country, but usually this doesn't last forever. You're getting older, you want some stability, you might want to build a family, you might want to make some structure for safety of your assets. So it's not really possible. And probably none of our clients achieved it. And there are only few people in the world that really match this criteria until some point where they will not.
Very special question. What if I have two passports and I
Yeah.
start to build two identities in two different countries?
Well, it depends. First of all, it shouldn't be the case. You have one identity, In some of the countries, after some time, you might be able to, let's say, change your name and surname, although this is extremely difficult and nowadays almost not possible. But if you live in developed countries, then they have, there is a police, the Interpol covers the area in case of EU, Europol covers the area, and there are intelligence institutions or, administration or governmental institutions that know that you hold two citizenships, that have in their databases that you are an Austrian citizen and you were always an Austrian citizen and you still have old Austrian passport. Now you are showing me a passport of, I don't know, Sao Tome, for example. We know that you are Austrian guy.
Okay, so it's not that easy that, hey, I have a second
No,
passport and
no,
I'm
no,
just
no.
another guy with the same name.
It's not easy,
Okay.
and I would say it's close to impossible because even if you would manage after a long period of time to change your name and surname in a passport, you have to do it in the original country of citizenship as well,
Mhm.
in most of the cases. So I think, yeah, I think we shouldn't continue this topic.
Got it.
But it's impossible, close to impossible, because
Okay.
we live in a world of exchange of information, and at the end, you don't want to commit crime, and you want to respect the international laws and laws of the country where you live.
Yeah, it's yeah, I was also asking that to understand if somebody says, "Wow, but this opens up for a lot of fraud and just like buying more passports gives me like get
This is
out
a
of jail
common
card or something
misconception.
like that."
It might, but there is fraud everywhere, and people are doing different things.
Mm,
So it shouldn't. This kind of frauds, they should not be associated with the CBI programs because CBI programs are legitimate. With what we should associate the fraud is the case we mentioned of this funny guy selling Slovenian or Romanian citizenship for 50K. This is a fraud.
got it. Cezary, let's for people to also get to know you a bit better. I want to ask you a few life hacks.
Oh no.
It's nice to also know, who's behind Cityverse, IBCCS, so they know with whom they will be working with.
Yeah.
How has past failure set you up for later success?
Oh my god, that's a very difficult question, and I don't like sharing my failures.
I know it's
Look,
not easy because we always try to bury them and don't think about them anymore.
yes, look, I can say this. When I started the business, I mean, I was always people and service and results oriented. So I was never a guy just wanting to, get the money for the service and then goodbye.
Hmm.
But I have definitely learned over the years that first of all, you should be very transparent with the people. You should be always honest, and you should care about the client in terms of you should not think about the money.
Mm,
Forget the money. Forget what he wants. You need to be useful to the client. You need to be helpful to him. Even if he comes to you and he says to you, I want a company in Cyprus, you should check why he wants it, why he needs it, or why he doesn't need it, and you should advise him accordingly. I have never tricked anyone into receiving a service or something, but I have seen many people doing this, and this is definitely wrong. So, first of all, you should always be useful to the clients, and it might not be obvious. You might create a service that is useful to the world, but might not be useful.
mm,
So I think this genuinity in terms of providing services, etc., and this is the key of being successful in this business because at the end, people come to us with the trust. We must build the trust. They must trust us. They will give us confidential info. They will give us access to their assets, and there must be a trust level achieved. So this is what I would definitely put on the table. I can't really think of any special fuck ups that we had in the business. We definitely had some. Although even if we had a fuck up, we were always saving the client, even if it's we made some mistake because if you have hundreds or thousands of clients, at some point you'll make a mistake.
mm,
But you fix it on your cost. You don't involve the client. And again, honesty is a key in this business because people who come to us are usually wealthy, experienced, with baggage, etc. They will rather appreciate us saying, sorry, we made a mistake, we fixed it, we are doing our best to, rather than us lying and saying, you know what, this is in progress, this and that. Businessmen, they understand it because they do they make.
well understood. In the past 4 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your daily life?
Another difficult question, although this one is a little bit more easy. I would say when my son was born 6 years ago, it has changed changed my life completely because I have changed my priorities a lot. I have changed the level of my, let's say, risk aversion, and I started investing in different things. First of all, for him to be able to, have good future, for him to be able to have good life, for me to be able to have a good life, and for us to have stability and money. Because unfortunately, in this world, in order to protect yourself, enjoy life, and have fun, because this is not why life is for, you need to have money. You cannot do things and buy things and achieve things without money. Definitely, my perception on the risk aversion, assets, legacy, planning the future changed. I definitely changed my perspective in terms of my time, because in the past I wanted to help everyone and I was this, good guy doing things for free, trying to solve every case, etc. With time, especially in our business, you realize that first of all, people use you, and second of all, you cannot help everyone if there is 500 people in the line.
Mm.
So saying no to people, asking them to pay for consultations, and basically being honest to death, it improved my life because I have more time, and people that I deal with value my time. If they have to pay for it, they get a good advice, they get great results, but they pay for it and they value what they get from me.
Mhm.
And also there is this, how can I phrase it? I would say I became more genuine, and I started noticing simple things in life because I was also exposed to a lot of different experiences, both on the personal level, on the business level. I had some unfortunate events in friends or families, which also changes the way how we look at life. And it also, yeah, that's it. And I think the last thing what I can mention, except being, let's call it, self-aware, is definitely not putting any focus on money. Money doesn't matter. If you want, money will always come to you. And if you lose the money, you make the money. If you only focus on money, you will never achieve anything. That's for sure. It's nice to make money, but it doesn't work in the way that people think.
Beautiful. Aside from a second passport, what is one of the best investments you've ever made?
If I can call it an investment, it was investment of making my child. So it was an emotional investment of having a child, which brings a lot of happiness to you, and it distracts you from work and from stress and from, heavy moments. In terms of the financial investments, two things. One, investment in people, not in business, because when I was opening different offices or creating different businesses, I was always involving relevant people in this business, and investing in the people and the business and not only the business, it makes a lot of difference.
Mhm.
Of course, you need to trust these people, etc. But I think the service business and the whole industry where we are is only working with people, and it doesn't really matter with which company you're working with. You're working with me, you're working with you as Georg, and most of the people, they do not care what is the name of my company. And not they
Mhm.
do not care what is the name of your company. They see you, they see your face, they see that you're decent, you're trusted, etc. And second thing, definitely real estate. I started investing in real estate in different countries, I think about 10 years ago. And now I do it, if I can call it, more heavily. This is, in my opinion, I'm a very difficult investor. I don't really do crypto and stocks, although we have a bunch of clients that do it, and I support it. But my mentality doesn't allow me to do this. But I'm very good in real estate, trading, flipping. I have good ROIs on the investments. So this is what I do. I don't regret it. I love this business, and it made me and it makes me a good money. So I definitely recommend to everyone to invest in real estate, or at least to diversify their portfolios.
Hmm.
especially the guys that are investing in risky spheres such as crypto or stocks or forex, etc. If you do only this, buy yourself some income generating real estate, because if the market crashes, nobody will take your property. You can go there, live there, you can, lie on the grass, knock the ceiling, paint the wall. It's going to be there, and statistically in the long term, even when there are some minor crises happening, in the long term, it's always an income and profit generating asset.
Nice. Finally, who should I invite next to this podcast? Or what should people hear about?
That's a very interesting question. Who should you invite? Who would you like to invite? I would say you should invite somebody from the government side of the CBI programs. I could make an introduction to you. We could discuss it. This is because I'm speaking here now to you and to our great audience and potential audience. I'm speaking as a service provider, as a side one promoting certain jurisdictions and investment in these jurisdictions. And I can explain, okay, you are making a donation because these guys are building roads, they're building airports, they're building farms, they're building schools, universities, etc. But I'm not representing these countries directly. I'm a tax advisor, I'm a financial advisor, and I cannot deliver the same amount of emotions as these people would do, because I have been there so many times. I have seen the changes, and let's say a government official from a relevant country who has helped the country to grow, who has helped the country to build hospitals, universities, etc., and who has helped the country to, through these programs, to develop the touristic infrastructure as well. I'm sure the level of emotions and the information they'll give are much different than I would do it, first of all, and our audience would definitely have a perspective of genuinity,
Hmm.
because okay, we will say yes, we are offering assistance in acquiring of citizenship by investment in a country A, but my message is probably not as clear as somebody would say, guys, thank you very much. We are helping children to be educated. We are helping people because we have built hospitals. Please come to our country, visit the country. We have great infrastructures, beautiful, etc. So I think it could be useful, because I personally haven't seen such podcasts or videos. There might be some, but they're either not done in a proper way or they don't exist. So you might be one of the persons making a nice podcast about this.
Yeah, I think it would be nice, especially what you've mentioned. It's not just they came up with an idea, let's sell some passports.
Yeah.
It's they need to generate income for their country.
Yeah, if I can make a small disclaimer, because I might have made this mistake as well. Sometimes I might casually do it. We cannot say that we're selling passports, because we're not selling the passports.
Yeah.
This term doesn't exist. It's illegal, and acquiring or selling passports should never be promoted, which of course is not. But the right term to use is actually acquiring the citizenship by investment. So have this in mind in case some government officials from Caribbean countries, Vanuatu, and everywhere else are hearing us. We're giving them best regards, and of course, we are not promoting selling passports, because such thing doesn't exist. We promote investing in the countries via the citizenship route, or vice versa, and we promote the actual substantial way to do it, the only legal way to do it, not like the fishy guys from Slovenia or Hungary. They sell passports. We assist clients in acquiring citizenship by investment, but that guys sells passports that are probably fake.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cezary. That was very insightful. I've learned a lot. Yeah, it was fun. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. It was fun for me as well. And yeah, looking forward to the next podcasts and looking forward to keep in touch.
Yeah,
And let's hope the viewers, the listeners will enjoy it as much or more as we did. And let's hope it will be useful for them.
yeah. Of course, we will link to Cityverse and IBCCS below in the show notes. So
Sure.
everybody who's interested can reach out. Mention as well our our word Investling, so you get preferential
Great.
service from his teams. If you enjoyed this conversation and would like to get financial advice for your investments abroad, contact Cityverse and mention Investling so you will get preferential service and a free consultation. Just reach out and mention Investling.